What's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be ranking every single... What? That's not it. What's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. We are officially about halfway through 2025, and I wanted to come on here and rank, in my opinion, the top 10 best movies that have come out so far this year. And I actually should go ahead and say this. I just said the best. These are just my 10 personal favorites. These are movies that I really enjoy. There are some other movies that, like, fundamentally might technically be better movies. But this is just the 10 movies that, like, if somebody was like, hey, what's a good movie that has come out this year? These are the 10 I would give them. I honestly have not seen that many movies that have come out this year. I'm really slacking right now. I'm at about 47. I know a lot of other people in the movie sphere have already seen about like 60 movies that have come out this year. So my list might be missing some really big movies that some of you guys are like, oh my God, how have you not seen this movie? There's a solid chance I just straight up have not seen it. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive into this, shall we? Coming in 10th place, we have the horror rom-com Hard Eyes. Personally, I think that this movie is just a really, really good time. I will say this, one of my favorite genres is rom-coms. My favorite movie of all time is 10 Things I Hate About You. So I'm always going to be the kind of person where, like, when a rom-com comes out, if it's actually good, if the actors and actress in it have really good chemistry, I'm going to love the movie. And for this film, they were able to do that. And then on top of that, also include a slasher thriller element to it, which is also a really lot of fun. I think that for the most part, the movie does have a lot of really predictable beats, but I think that the sense of humor in it is absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of really good dark humor. There's like two in particular sequences with the Hard Eyes killer that feels genuinely pretty terrifying, and I think that for the most part it does a really good job of balancing the fact that it at its heart really is a rom-com, but then there's also a couple of slasher elements, and then like the lone survivor element to most of these films. Instead, it's the lone two survivors, and they have really good chemistry. So I personally was a really big fan of this movie. Coming in 9th place, we have the movie Elio. Personally, I am a diehard Pixar fan, so it's going to be really hard for me to not include this on this list. And genuinely, I think that this movie really shocked me. I think that that's one of the main things about this movie that puts it really high on my list. I had very low expectations going into this film, and when I saw it, it actually was really solid. I think that the animation style, once again, absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of the sequences in outer space that are really beautifully animated, and there's a lot of really vibrant colors that I really like. I think that the story is a lot more emotional than I was expecting it to be. This came out about a month after the live action Lilo and Stitch, which really butchered the whole Awana means family story. And this movie being a movie that's really important about family and how he only really has his aunt with him. And so they might be a small family, but that family is still important, and the people who you love are the people who are right there with you, and you really shouldn't take them for granted, because Elio is somebody who feels like in order to be wanted, in order to feel like he's going to fit in, he needs to be abducted by aliens, and then he gets exactly what he wants. He gets abducted by aliens and realizes that the entire time, everything that he needed and everything he's been longing for in life, he just needed to really appreciate everything he had going for him on Earth. And I think that that's really great. I think that it was a really beautiful story, and for the most part, I really had a good time with it. Coming in 8th place, this is a really dumb, stupid movie, but I really loved it. We got the Final Destination Bloodlines. Personally, I really had a good time with this movie. I think that the Final Destination movies are really interesting because they're kind of like, what if you had a slasher movie, but there was no actual slasher going around killing people, and it's just like the forces of the universe causing people to die? And because of that, there's a lot of really fun sequences in this movie of people getting murdered. And I think that the use of practical effects and visual effects and all of the CGI actually leads for a lot of really iconic death sequences. Like, I know a lot of people were really complaining about some of the deaths in this movie feeling very CGI heavy, but they do a really good job with the CGI. I think that the graphic, gory sequences look really good, and this family dynamic for the most part is very entertaining to me. I know a lot of people were saying that they couldn't get connected to the characters. I personally was. I thought that this was a very fun story, and I think that when you have the concept of, okay, well, everybody knows that they're going to die, you have to do something to really spice it up. And I like the fact that they were all kind of like trying to cheat death in different ways, and when you try to cheat death, it just comes back for you even harder. So a lot of the death sequences in this movie feel very cartoony, and I think that that's by design. I really like that. And then I also think the dark humor in this film is just absolutely fantastic. They have a sequence where they're talking to Tony Todd's character, and he explains to them that, one of the few ways you can escape death is if you skip the cycle or whatever, and somebody else dies, and then you can take whatever's left of their life. And then later we have two brothers walking around in a hospital, and they're like, maybe we should kill somebody so that you could live longer. And then they're like, but how do we know how long this person's gonna live? And then they walk by a nursery and they hear babies crying, and then they both look at each other like, that's a terrible idea. Yeah, you're right, we shouldn't do that. But that scene might be the hardest I've laughed in a single movie so far this year. I loved it to death. It was really good. Coming in 7th place, this is the only streaming service original movie on the list. We have Predator, Killer of Killers, and oh my god, I think every Predator movie as of this point should really be animated. I think that the animation style for this is absolutely beautiful. It's an anthology series, so there's one chapter about the Vikings, there's one chapter about samurais having to fight against a predator, and then there's a sequence with a really epic dogfight between a World War II pilot who got drafted into the military and really doesn't know a lot about planes versus a predator which has really advanced technology and, you know, they're high-tech spaceships. And I think that all the fight sequences in here are absolutely phenomenal. I love the whole like brains versus bronze, and the people who are able to win against all of these predators are because they're able to outthink them. And I think that that's really cool. And there's a lot of sequences in this movie where it's like you could pause it and it literally just looks like a painting. It's a work of art. And I genuinely think that this movie does a really good job of getting us really like into the characters and gives us an opportunity to really like feel the connection with them, despite only having like 20 minutes with the Vikings and 20 minutes with the samurai and then 20 minutes with the fighter pilot before the final conclusion, which throws them all together in a really interesting kind of gladiator fight sequence. I think it was really, really cool. I loved everything they did with this movie, and I would love to see another movie just like it. Coming in 6th place, this is just another ridiculously fun movie. We have the movie Novocaine. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Jack Quaid, and I am glad that he is finally getting some movie time. I think that this man absolutely deserves to be on the big screen, and this film is just absolutely incredible. I love the overall concept of like, okay, a guy who can't feel pain, well, what if he decides to go and try to be like a superhero for a day? And there's a lot of really fun sequences. I think that this movie has a lot of incredible comedic beats. Like, I genuinely laughed out loud so many times throughout this movie, and something that I really got to give this movie credit for compared to a lot of other movies that have came out in the recent years. When it comes to an action movie and you're doing something kind of like similar to the movie Taken, where, you know, you have 10-15 minutes to set up a character and their relationship with another character, and then that character gets kidnapped, you really need to make sure that these actors work relatively well with each other. And Jack Quaid and the love interest in this movie have such an incredible chemistry that like they go on one date, they spend one night together, and they just have so much like love for each other, and it just feels so like real and raw and beautiful that when she gets kidnapped in the movie and he spends, you know, the entire rest of the movie chasing after her, trying to save her, it feels very genuine. You understand why he is doing that because they had so much chemistry. And the first 20-30 minutes of this movie really feels like a rom-com in the best way possible. I really loved it. And once again, I am a sucker for rom-com, so that's part of the reason why I have this so high on the list. I just think that this is absolutely fantastic, and Jack Quaid is killing it this year. And coming in 5th place, we have the movie Thunderbolts. This is the only superhero movie on the list, and I gotta say, this movie is absolutely fantastic. I really am a big fan of it. I think that for the most part, this team dynamic is really cool. It's the most coherent MCU movie that we've gotten in probably the last 4 years, if we're being totally honest. And I just absolutely love that it's very grounded. They decided, you know what? Well, there's a lot of really interesting characters that we could deal with that don't necessarily need to have flying capabilities. They don't need to have these mystical powers or magic or anything like that. They're just assassins. They're just people who have done bad things and are trying to make, you know, better of themselves and better of their situation. And I like the way that they use emotional distress as kind of a way to bring these characters together. These are people who are going through some of the most depressing times of their life, and they really, really feel purposeless. And then you kind of bring them together because, well, they have to. There's no other options. It's them or nobody. And it's really cool. I really like the team dynamic, and I definitely think that this is the movie, in my opinion, out of the last two phases of Marvel that feels the most like the OG Avengers movie, because they have sequences where these superhero powers are just having regular conversations with each other. And I think that that's so huge in superhero media that they get so focused on like, okay, the punchy, kicky, but it's like the scenes that really make those action sequences work are when we have the heart-to-heart moments between some of these smaller characters. And they really nail that with this movie. I think they do an incredible job. I think that Bob is phenomenal. Lewis Pullman's acting in this is absolutely incredible. And I know this is not the kind of movie he would get an Oscar for, but like his acting performance is genuinely insanely good in this movie. And I think that for the most part, they're able to make a action movie that doesn't rely on the action to be the most captivating part of it. And I think that that's always really, really good. Alrighty, and coming in 4th place, we have Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Tom Cruise is arguably the biggest movie star on the planet, and he absolutely knocks it out of the park with this movie. This movie has a solid, like, 40 minutes of just crazy stunt work by Tom Cruise, and then there's a lot of really good emotional sequences throughout the movie with him and Simon Pegg, and this being their final mission together. There's a lot of this movie that is just has you on the edge of your seat. Like, genuinely, I think the last like hour and 20 minutes of this film might be like absolutely perfect. The pacing is phenomenal, but the first half, in my opinion, does kind of feel like a very much like previously on the Mission Impossible franchise. And so it does knock it down a couple pegs, but this movie overall has incredible action sequences, incredible sequences with just these people just bouncing off of each other. Like, Simon Pegg is an incredible actor, and I think that he really is a standout in this film, and him kind of taking over the leadership role here because Ethan Hunt needs to go take care of other things is really intriguing. And I really like the fact that this movie kind of is able to separate these two groups and just show how much they trust each other and how well they work together, and it's really cool. I think that a lot of the spy mischief is really interesting. The stuff with the submarine, I was literally holding my breath for so long during this movie. There's a lot of very stressful moments, and I think that's very, very entertaining. I genuinely think that this is a franchise I'm very much going to miss if they genuinely are done with it. Coming in third place, starting off our little podium here, we have the movie Companion. I know that this is a movie that a lot of people are probably not going to have that high up on their list, but I personally was a really huge fan of this movie. I like to describe it to people as this is kind of like Barbie for the freaks and weirdos, and oh my god, Sophie Thatcher is a star. I need to see her in literally everything, everywhere. She is phenomenal in this film. Once again, Jack Quaid is in this movie. I think that, like I said, he's having a brilliant year right now, and he just plays a greasy, slimy dirtbag so well, and he's so evil in this movie, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I kind of like the concept of, okay, we have this robot, they're gaining sentience, and kind of like showing some of the like downsides of, hey, maybe we shouldn't treat robots like absolute shit, especially when they have coding and programming where they're supposed to have emotions, because what happens if those emotions go off the rails? What if they, get hacked and this kind of stuff? And I absolutely love it. I think that this story is very interesting. I think that the kind of action sequences are really unique, and there's, once again, a lot of incredible comedic beats throughout this entire film, and I genuinely just think that the way that they build up the logic behind these people being AIs is really cool, and I genuinely also just love the fact that there's some really cool twists in here with there being like multiple AIs in the movie, and there being, specific rules where like an AI can't kill this person, but like they're able to break those rules. And I just really loved the journey of this movie. It feels like there's a lot of very mysterious elements to it. And when the trailers for this movie came out, they were kind of revealing a lot about the movie. But trust me, you're in for a treat if you think that that trailer was spoiling things, because it's not at all. Coming in second place, this was the most thought-provoking movie I've seen in a really long time. We have The Life of Chuck. This movie was directed by Mike Flanagan. He is known for his horror works, and oh my god, this movie is absolutely beautiful, and he does jump scares a couple of times. Do not think for a second that, okay, well, we're going to be in the clear because he called this movie a love letter to his children. And overall, this film is one of the most interesting structures for a film I've seen in a really long time. I like the fact that the way he decided to do this was, we start off with the end of Chuck's life, and we kind of see things through the way that Chuck would see the world. So instead of us, spending a lot of time with Chuck, we're spending time in his mind. And that was really unique. I thought that was cool. And overall, we're just going throughout, the end of his life, kind of, the end of the world, what would you do in that scenario kind of situation. That's what the entire third act is about. And then the second act is truly just one of the most emotional things I've ever seen, because it's talking about the last time you ever get to do certain things, right? And how there's this really bittersweet thing about life where the last time you dance, you probably won't know it's the last time you're going to dance. The last time you spend time, interacting with a stranger, it might be the last time you ever interact with a stranger. And just the little things like that, where it's like, he decides to drop his briefcase, even though he's a very serious person, he's a businessman, he's on call, he's at a conference, he has to be somewhere, but he hears a busker drumming, and he's really feeling the music, really feeling the beat, so he decides to stop and dance in the middle of the street, and he grabs a stranger and they dance together, and it's like this very beautiful celebration of life. And the narrator goes on to explain that he didn't know why he did that, he just felt like he had to do it. And in the following weeks, he was no longer able to walk, he was no longer able to chew food, he was no longer able to remember his wife's name. And it's just a very, very emotional sequence, kind of showcasing that you should appreciate life while you're here, because you never know the things that you're taking for granted. And I just think that this movie touched me in a way that I wasn't expecting to be touched. That sounds wrong. That sounds really bad. Okay, well, you know what? We're not going to talk about it. But yeah, this movie, incredibly emotional. I was unprepared for it. I think it's incredible. And like I said, there's a couple of jump scares in here. There's a lot of good comedy in here. I think that this movie is just overall one of the most like emotional roller coasters of a ride I've seen this entire year. And I genuinely don't think that there's other movies that are going to make me feel as much as this movie has made me feel. I think that the only reason I will knock this down a couple pegs is because we didn't spend a lot of time with Chuck in the third act, which was actually the first act. And because of that, it does make some of the rest of this movie a little bit confusing. But that being said, I do really like what they did with it. But in first place, this should be no surprise to anybody. I think this is the best movie that has came out in probably the last 3 years. The movie Sinners. Ryan Coogler, I want you to know, I think you are without a doubt one of the greatest directors working to date. This movie, in my opinion, is flawless. I think that there's one scene in particular that is probably the greatest scene I've ever seen in my life. It literally felt like I was levitating in the theater when we saw it. It's the song I Lied to You, when Miles Canton plays that song, and they have the sequence where it's like showcasing like, okay, well, it connects to the old ancestors, and there's the old, you know, African tribes playing the bongos, playing the drums, and then it kind of speeds up and montages into modern hip-hop and just different things like that. And overall, this movie is just phenomenal. There's a lot of sequences like that where everything just flows so seamlessly, and it's absolutely incredible. I think that the fact that this movie was advertised as a vampire movie, but like the villains of the movie are 100% the KKK, is absolutely incredible. I think that Smoke is a very emotionally complex character, and I think that all the different things he does for his brother, and the fact that he, you know, wasn't able to be a dad because he wasn't ready to, you know, put away this like darker half of him, and the fact that he's able to, by the end of the movie, kind of put things to rest and go and join his wife in the afterlife is a very emotional way to end this movie. I think that it's absolutely beautiful, and I think that overall the party sequences are fantastic. The comedy in it is relatively good. There's a lot of different romance stories throughout that are very interesting, and Jack O'Connell as the villain vampire, oh, he's fantastic. Oh, he's absolutely incredible. I want to see him in everything now. He is so good. But overall, I think that this movie's just incredibly fun, and I think that it's historically rich, and I think that it's a very good cautionary tale, and I genuinely like it. Also, I love movies like this where the entire movie takes place in the time span of 24 hours. I think that that's also just a sick added bonus. But yeah, I really like this movie. I think that it's phenomenal. I think that Michael B. Jordan playing twins was really good. And yeah, so that being said, that was it for this list. If you guys want to go ahead and leave your top 10 down below, and any movies that are not on this list that you're like, oh my god, have you seen this movie? Because I haven't seen movies like Black Bag. There's a couple of other really major ones that I'm not remembering the name of right now, but there's a lot of movies that I have missed. So if there's any movies that you've seen this year that are a little more obscure that you're like, oh my god, Blake, you gotta watch this, please let me know. But that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by, checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching, and if you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.